Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, now we've got Rumble up. Okay. Hi everybody. Should be streaming live right now. Make sure this is. Why is Rumble taking forever to get up here? Okay, let's just see what's going on with these others. Okay, so that one's good. Bear with me here, folks. Bear with me, please. Had a little bit of an emergency. I'll explain it in just a minute. But just give me just a second here to get everything up. Yeah, just kind of give me just a second here because Rumble apparently, at least for me, Rumble is running, but it's running the video. And I don't know why. I may have to turn it off and turn it back on again. Give me just a second here. It says that I'm streaming. So maybe I need to back out. This is for me. Maybe I need to back out and come back in. Let me see. Because I want to be able to make sure that I'm in the right one. Okay, so it's showing me live, and yet, there we go. Okay, finally. All right, so finally I got it up. Okay. All right. Whew. Sorry, guys. Things happen here at the ranch at times, and yeah, let's just say that it's been a very interesting scenario for me. So what happened is I went out to go and I went out to go feed my horses. For those of you that don't know, I've got three wonderful old men, but well, I mean, my oldest guy got sick. And just so you guys understand, it's a terminology called colic. Okay. And for those of you that have had a baby with colic, you kind of understand, but it's basically where they have an obstruction and they don't poop. Okay. And it's very, very dangerous for horses to get colic because of the fact that if they can't clear the obstruction, they will try to like lay down and roll over and, roll back and forth. They're in a lot of pain typically. And what ends up happening is if they roll too much, they'll end up twisting their gut. And if their gut gets twisted, it's pretty much game over. The horse is essentially, without a like $30,000 surgery, the horse is pretty much gone. Okay. Now this old man, he's 29. Which honestly is old for horses. But anyway, as I was saying, when I went out to go feed at 5 o'clock, getting ready to come back in and, do the rest of my show, he was laying down, breathing hard and not wanting to get up, and realistically not wanting to move either. So, and I happened to notice it after I threw the hay out in the field for them, because the other two came over and immediately started eating like they're supposed to. But he literally just would not move. And so what I've been spending my last hour before the program, and this is why I'm late, is I had to go out and get him up, get him walking. And thankfully, it was fairly quick for him to basically go ahead and go poop. So he's done it a couple times. We're in watch mode. Mrs. Whiskey is going to keep an eye on him, but he went back. He finally stop breathing hard, which, you know, for anybody that knows animals, whenever they are stressed, they will breathe rapidly. And so, anyway, he had stopped breathing rapidly. I was able to listen and I could hear his gut moving. And believe me, it sounds like liquid, you know, shifting around and stuff like that. So, you know, and you use a stethoscope or you can use your ear, your plain ear to hear it. But essentially what ended up happening is, thank goodness, I was able to get him up, get him walking, get him moving. And I think he's feeling better now. And so, and yeah, guys. So anyway, what ended up happening is that's why I'm so late, is because of the fact that I had to get him going and moving and, you know, that kind of stuff, because otherwise it would have been a call to the vet. So, so thank you very much for being patient with me, being patient to get this set up and start running. That's the explanation. And so, you know, things are going to be a little discombobulated, but it's because I wasn't 100% prepared for what's going on. So, so basically that's why I'm late. I apologize. There's the explanation. And now you guys probably know more about horses than what you really want to. So let me get a couple lights on here so you guys can actually see me, and we'll go from there. Thank goodness. Hopefully he'll stay that way, but I'm going to be a little nervous. And I will tell you that if my wife comes in and tells me that he's gone down again, the show will end and I will go and take care of him. So, just so you guys are aware of what's happening. That's essentially what's going on. All right. In fact, I don't even have any whiskey in here because I just rushed in and my wife was like, "You're 5 minutes late. Go and take care of it, and I'll keep an eye on him." So, so anyway, all right. Okay. Thank you. I will have a whiskey later. I got to keep my wits about me though, because I got to keep him, hopefully moving. He's an older horse, and so older horses generally tend to colic very easily, and so this is really you know, again, kind of a scary situation realistically for that. So anyway, there you go. All right, like I said, you guys know more now about horses than I think you guys may have ever wanted to at this point. But welcome to horse ownership. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and skip my my usual couple of usual things, like talking about the Institute on the Constitution. You guys hear it every week, so I'm not gonna do this for, you know, I'm not going to do my normal script, but let's go ahead and do yourselves a favor. And I think I've got it queued up. For 3 Chevy, if I'm remembering. But anyway, let's go ahead. And if you are of a mind to, let's please take a stand, remove your hat, and let's go ahead and get the Pledge of Allegiance going.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So there we go. All right. Wow. Okay. So, let's go ahead and just get a couple things started here. Because of the fact that, I've got some serious issues this week. I'm a little chapped, more so than just the horse. I mean, the horse has got me discombobulated, but, I'm a little chapped, and I'm going to be, I'm going to lay it out there. There's a couple things that happened this week that I think are extremely screwed up by this administration. And so one of the things that happened this week was, of course, the funeral of the police officer, Jonathan Diller, up in New York. He was apparently working patrol, and they had pulled somebody over. There was a a bar. They were parked in an illegal zone, like a bus zone or something. They pulled up, and anyway, I don't know all of the details. I can't remember right off the top of my head all the details, but he ended up being killed by no less than a guy, a perpetrator that has been essentially been collared, okay, by collared, arrested over 20 times prior. Now, why this guy was even out on the streets is beyond me. I honestly, I can't understand why this jackass was out on the streets on this, but he was. I mean, New York is a freaking Democrat state, and it's got liberal policies and all of that other junk. But anyway, the guy was had 20 arrests. He was out on the street. Diller and his partner were doing what they are supposed to do, and the perp and his associate were looking to potentially case something. They were parked in the bus stop, casing a person or location, more than likely. The illegal parking was a violation that gave the two cops, Diller and his partner, the ability and the reason to stop the perps. But they were not out there necessarily to do, to essentially do, sign stuff or, sign tickets or whatever. But these guys were basically bad guys. At least one of them was a bad guy. And yeah. Anyway, so they went ahead and they had the funeral. Now this is really the main point of it, of this entire conversation. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background with it. But two things were happening during the funeral. The first one, of course, is the fact that Donald Trump actually took time to go and attend the funeral and give his condolences to the family and that kind of stuff. The second was the fact that we had the three worst Democrat presidents in modern history. And by modern history, I mean since the 1990s, in Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Billy the Willie Clinton. And all three of them showed up at a fundraiser that was a quote-unquote grassroots fundraiser. Now, I don't know how grassroots you can make when you charge, let's see, what was it? The base level entry plate was $100,000, and it costs somewhere between $250,000 or $250,000 to $500,000 to take a picture with the guests of honor. Oh yeah. Truly, Biden and his cohorts, Obama and Clinton, are men of the people. And they are, yeah. Just think about this. They put together this dinner with the idea that obviously it was a fundraiser. And believe me, the left went completely bananas afterward. And they were saying, oh, that's the most, anyone has ever raised on a fundraiser and all this other bullshit. Yeah. Well, just think about this, though, that the one former president that not only has not been, endorsed by any other former presidents. Frankly, I think he doesn't really give a crap, which I am inclined to agree. There's no reason for him to have to, be a part of the globalist group that has consistently tried to take down the American country in the last years. And so anyway, this jackass decided to have his buddies come in. And of course, they're already rolling out. Now, this is the key here, is that they're already rolling out their aces in the hole. They're already like calling to the bullpen, hey, we need that righty or we need that lefty or whatever it is, whatever it freaking is. They're already calling for the reinforcements because of the fact that Joe Biden is just that astronomically horrible. And that's what you need to take away from this. Also, keep in mind, too, that they are the elite. And so they will tell you what is good for you. You don't know what's good for you until we tell you what's good for you. And yeah, that is, well, apparently he came out, Joe Biden came out, and he was looking, to some people anyway, he was looking kind of like a plastic robot. And he even at one point, according to, oh geez, I don't know what's going on here, but, sorry about that. But it even at one point, okay, he looked at Stephen Colbert, which I guess Colbert was like hosting the event or whatever, but, Stephen Colbert came out and, Biden had to look at him and say something along the lines of, well, what do we do now? And Biden also had to like whip out his sunglasses and put on his sunglasses, which a lot of the left were sitting there saying, "Oh, this is Dark Brandon showing up." Yeah. Well, anyway, as if there was, any kind of real information or anything amazing, I just want to point out to you too that even Willie Billy Boy Clinton, okay, looks young compared to Joe Biden. So I'm not exactly sure the optics on this little event was that great. I mean, Obama has, grayed up, and that's typically what happens when you're in a very high stress job, such as the presidency is. But yeah, it just is freaking amazing to me that they're already trotting out these guys to try and revive and protect and support Biden, especially when you look at Obama and Biden hate each other. They hate each other. So all of this was going on, of course, during the wake. I've been corrected by my rumblers, which is typical. The Rumble folks have corrected me. It was a wake, and I don't know if it was an Irish wake or not, but it was a wake. And, but anyway, that was going on at the same time. And so here, I want to show you this image because this is, and I'm sorry, like I said, I'm a little discombobulated. So give me just a second to get this up. Here we go. So here's the New York Post headline: Trump attends wake for killer hero NYPD cop as 3 Dem presidents shut down the city for a glitzy $25 million fundraiser. So explain to me, tell me, I mean, even if you were just to look at this photo, which one would be considered the man of the people? Okay. Which one should be considered the president of the people? And I'll tell you, it's not the 3 old gray-haired geriatric gentlemen who sat in a expensive elitist fundraiser on a day of somber latitude within the NYPD. I mean, granted, there are a lot of officers that die, across the country. So not every single one can gain attention. But who is the man of the people here? Who is the man of first responders? Who's the man of the military? Now, I know that there's fake news running around talking about, Trump and his, and essentially his comments that were falsified and fake and just like everything else. Trump has a deep respect for the NYPD officers, the firefighters, the other first responders, first aid folks, as well as for the military too, even though he never served himself. he still has respect for those people. So there's no way that you can look at this and say, hey, the optics here are incredibly great. They're not. They're not. Well, another big surprise came out of this situation, okay? And that is Governor Kathy Hochul apparently was also asked to leave after 10 minutes. Now, here's the thing. She was not asked to be there in the first freaking place, but she went ahead. She went to go, and we all know that the reasons why she went to go has to deal with the fact that it is snapshots and sound bites. Dan Bongino talks about this all the time. A political campaign is literally snapshots and sound bites. And she was looking for both at this. But thankfully, the officers won the day, and she was asked to leave because of her policies. And of course, the New York City Police Department and its mayor, Mayor Adams, and their policies against these illegal immigrants who are coming. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. They're not illegal immigrants. These illegal aliens who are coming across our border freely and committing these crimes. And what's worse is when they get caught, they're not deported, at least not under Joe Biden. Now, this guy apparently has been, deported multiple times. So this guy, this for her to show up is really in poor taste, especially not after not being invited. But apparently several police officers clapped as she walked away, according to this piece in the Post Millennial. She was asked to leave the wake on Friday after she was there for 10 minutes. The governor attempted to come into the venue for a scheduled second day of viewings and was present for about 10 minutes before a man in a black suit came up and spoke to her. Police sources told the New York Post that the governor had been asked to leave the venue. And there's some footage here from the Post Millennial's X account. I'm not going to play it, but if you want to, you can go and check in my description, the video description, and it'll show it. Prior to the event, an NYPD union had told other New York City politicians not to plan on attending. Former President Donald Trump was invited to attend and paid respects to the fallen officer. Dillon was killed, of course, during a routine traffic stop on Monday when he was shot by a suspect with 21 prior events. The governor had been attempting to attend the second day of viewings for the wake on Friday, and several of the officers in the venue clapped in response to Hochul's being asked to go. Democrats, you guys don't seem to get it. You guys jumped in with this whole idea of freaking policies with regards to defunding the police. You sat by silently while the entire country burned. Okay? The entire country burned, and it freaking in the summer of 2020, you sat by while and berated police officers for this. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. How you Democrats, yes, I put that in with a P, not a T, how you Democrats seem to think that you're not only the party of the people, which you're not, but that you can desecrate a somber occasion for snapshots and sound bites when you're the cause of the problem. When you're the cause of the problem. All right. Now, before I move on to my next, I've got to reach out. Tommy over on Facebook. She says that she didn't get a notice that the show was coming on. And I just want to let you know, Tommy, I was late. I was late for an emergency with one of my horses. And so that's probably why you didn't get it. So don't necessarily blame Facebook for that. You can go back and watch the first part of the whole video and you'll be able to understand. All right. So now I'm going to move on to what really, really is pissing me off today. You know, there's this little thing known as the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence has this statement in there where it talks about being endowed by our Creator. Endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. America started as a religious recognizing country, meaning that we recognize that there is a God. Now, what form that God takes will vary depending upon the religious beliefs. But the point is that everybody that was here, all of the founding fathers, they all recognized a supreme being. Whether or not they believed in the Bible was something totally different. But they all recognized the fact that there was a supreme being and that supreme being's laws are higher than the laws of men. And this is part of where we have such a disparaging misunderstanding. A disparaging misunderstanding when it comes to the First Amendment and the so-called Establishment Clause when we're talking about the establishment of religion and the free exercise thereof. And it's further carried on because of the wording that was used by Thomas Jefferson while in office when he put in the idea of a wall of separation. That was actually designed to be a one-way mirror. But when you have a government that is attempting, now if you recall back in July 4th, they had a celebration where this person trounced around topless, where you had, this whole idea and posed with the president, by the way, at the time. And you have decency that was just thrown out with regards to the White House. Well, the White House is continuing that today. In fact, they started it, believe it or not, on Good Friday. And, look, I'm going to take a second to just make sure you people understand something, okay? I believe in God. I believe in a supreme being. I've tried to raise my family that way, but I don't necessarily subscribe to a specific religion. I was raised in the Catholic faith. I did take a short, brief stint to go into the Baptist faith. And I have also attended other churches, but I've never really found one that fits with me. But one thing has always been true, no matter what, and that is the Word of God, the Bible. Now, I have 4 of them. I meant to have one here in my hand, but I have 4 of them, different translations, and I always bounce one off of another when I have questions or, I want to make sure of a translation. In fact, the whole idea of things like "thou shalt not kill," which is the most populist, and yes, I did say populist, not popular, but populist interpretation of what most would consider to be the most holy of commandments. But thou shalt not kill actually is thou shalt not murder. In the actual translation, the truest translation of it. So killing is one thing, murder is another. And another thing that the left like to talk about is being judgmental. You know, another fond phrasing or fond often quoted Bible verse is, do not judge lest ye be judged. And what a lot of people don't understand with that is the fact that the Bible itself, when you read it and look through it, and I even had a conversation on one of my other episodes about this, judging is one thing, but holding other Christians accountable for their actions is quite another. Again, judging is one thing, but holding other Christians accountable is something totally different. And I bring this up, and I kind of opened you up into my private life a little bit just so you understand where I am coming from when I point this out. Okay? So apparently on Good Friday, which for those of you who are not of the religious faith, Good Friday is the Friday before Easter. It is the day that, if I recall correctly, it is the day that the stone was discovered to be rolled away and Jesus's body was disappeared. And it wasn't until 3 days later, because he descends into hell to meet with Satan. And he descends into hell and then arises again on Easter Sunday. And this is the celebration of our God's transformation from man back into his spiritual form. This is the celebration of the rebirth of Christ. After his punishment on the cross and his ultimate death for our sins, to make it so that we as a people could actually enter into the kingdom of heaven. Well, Biden decided to celebrate transgenderism. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? You need to understand. Okay, so I've been corrected. It took me a little bit, but I've been corrected. Apparently, according to Coco Dominki, Good Friday was the day that Jesus was crucified. Saturday, he rests. Sunday is the stone is rolled away and the angel appeared. And tells everybody that he's risen. So, okay. Well, see, now you know I gotta go back and not only read the Bible, but I'm gonna have to go back to church. And hey, you know what? I am not perfect. Nobody is perfect. I'm telling you, nobody is perfect. And I'm not perfect. I have my own sins that I'm going to have to atone for when I go and meet my Maker. I accept that. But one thing that these people, especially those on the left, don't seem to understand is while Jesus does appreciate everyone, he does not appreciate sin. While Jesus loves everyone, he does not love sin. And there are some things in this world that are sins. That's written in the Bible. It is clear for all of that. And to do this on a holy day, and this isn't even the worst of it either, folks, but to do this on a holy day indicates to me that Biden is even worse off than I am with it when it comes to remembering this stuff, because this is something that should not be happening. Look, you can have a celebration of transgenderism if you'd like. You can have that. That's the beauty of living in America. You don't have to believe as I do. I don't have to believe as you do. But the point of this is that this, doing it on a known, and this is even the worst part, Catholic, because Biden claims to be a devout, practicing Catholic. And for him to go and do this is just amazingly bad. And yes, I'm not being judgmental. That was why I was telling you. But I am going to hold him accountable by saying this is a complete frickin' screw up on his part. A complete screw up on this part. Now, what's even worse, though, is that now the Biden administration has kicked out the fact that he has called Easter. He's declaring Easter. Not the day before, not the day after, not a week later. He's declaring Easter Sunday, tomorrow. When our Lord has risen from the dead, he has declared it as a trans day of visibility. So not only, and again, you, whatever you believe, this is entirely up to you, but understand that the sin that is there in the Bible when it deals with transgenderism, the sin doesn't disappear. Okay? For those of you who believe, it does not disappear. But yet, he who is a devout Catholic, again, this is the thing, is that he is using his devout Catholicism as a crutch to try to attract the Catholics and the Christian religion and the religious folks to try and, he uses it as a crutch. And he declared Easter, which is outside of Christmas and Easter are like the two most holiest days of the entire year for anyone who is a Christian. For anyone who believes in Jesus Christ, those 2 days are like the two holiest. And here he is, a devout Catholic, again, professed devout Catholic, saying that it's a trans day of visibility. He declared it. And you can actually go to whitehouse.gov and pull it up. I mean, you can go ahead and look at the declaration. It's there. It's been making the rounds on social media. Now, in conjunction with this, okay, and keep in mind, okay, this part I am not as chapped about, let's say, with this. I don't agree with it, but then again, considering the fact, like I was saying, that most people misinterpret the idea of the separation of church and state as a physical barrier that can't, that you can't go one way or the other, that it's a actual physical wall. There is an argument that can be made there. I don't agree with it, but there's an argument that can be made there. However, the White House took one step further and they banned religious themed designs from their White House Easter egg art contest. Now, keep in mind, Easter eggs, the Easter bunny, the whole chocolate thing, the searching for eggs, all of that is secular celebrations that are not part. It's just like Santa Claus and the gift giving at Christmas. Okay. Now the gift giving is at Christmas is supposed to represent the three wise men. Okay. And so realistically, I mean, I can sort of see where this, if this was all that they did for Easter Sunday, I don't think they'd get as much backlash as what they are right now. But here's the thing though. The religious themed designs were banned from it. Now, how do you know, as an example, if you just put out an Easter art contest? And here's the thing, okay? And this is in the New York Post, but here's the thing. They had the 2024, so this is what they're doing, is they are having a Celebrating National Guard Families art event at the White House. Okay, this is for 2024. And they asked children to submit designs and art prior to, or as including, I guess, the Easter egg roll or whatever. But anyway, The flyer for the contest states that an Easter egg design submission must not include, get this, any questionable content, religious symbols, overtly religious themes, or partisan political statements. So here's the thing. You are inviting people to put their thoughts and onto paper. You're inviting children to do this. There is nothing wrong with just accepting what's there and judging it, if you really want to, not necessarily on its content, but the quality of the work. The colors, the use of colors, the design, so on and so forth. And here's the thing. You can avoid all of this by just not even mentioning whether or not there is some religious symbols or significance here, but you cannot miss the fact that here in America, just like with Christmas, there is a strong religious undertone with Easter. And that by doing this, you are essentially telling all of these children, especially the ones that are being raised inside the Christian religion, to hide their religion. Not much unlike how the Jews had to hide during Hitler's reign. This is a symbolization that a lot of people don't seem to understand. This guy is literally trying to destroy the family unit and Christian religious tenets that have been ingrained in our society for generations. And even though the attendance of church has been dropping over in over the years, especially within recent history, it's stuff like this that brings people back to it. Because of the fact that they realize that they're in the wrong spot. They're in a bad place. And as of right now, America is in my opinion, a really bad place. Now, Biden could have done his transgender day of visibility another day. But for him to go and pick specifically one of the two top religious holidays that are still in existence in America, in the West, in the Western world completely, and target it specifically, there is a complete undertone that they are trying to get rid of. If you honestly think that they are not trying to get rid of Christians' values, the Christian religion here in America, you're lost. You literally have no brain cells to rub together to figure this out. Sorry. My voice is my throat's a little dry. So I can't even begin to understand where his intelligence was coming from. So you know what? Leftists, I'm going to tell you right now, leftists, don't even come at me with the idea that Trump is such a bad guy. Don't even come at me with the idea that you hate, like I talked about on this last episode, that you hate the fact that Trump is endorsing a Bible. Don't even come at me with the idea that, oh, Biden's gone to church so much more than Trump has. That Trump's an adulterer. That Trump is a liar. That Trump is a criminal. Don't even come at me with that. These actions, these two actions, specifically targeted Christians. I will never, ever accept the fact that Biden is a devout Catholic. Not like I really did before. But even now, these two actions that he has specifically taken, his administration has specifically taken, there is absolutely no way that you will ever get me to believe that Biden or the Biden family, I mean, we already know how Hunter acts, especially with his freaking sister-in-law. We already know how he acts. You will never, ever get me to believe that Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and the rest of the Biden family are actually religious. Never. 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 There is absolutely no way that this man can claim to be a man of God or claim to be fearful of God when he does what he just did. There is absolutely no way. None whatsoever. And it's not just him. Keep in mind, folks, we're looking at the potential. I mean, I've been saying it for a few that we are looking at. This is no longer Democrat versus Republican. This is no longer rich versus poor. This is no longer middle class versus everybody else. This is literally evil versus good that's coming right here, right now, right today. Joe Biden just made it public that that is specifically how he views Christians, his fellow Christians, supposedly, because he is, again, a devout Catholic. Yeah. But CNN here, this is in the Daily Fetched. CNN is now referring to Christians as, quote, Easter worshipers. Easter worshipers. Mainstream media outlets, this is let me put this up. Sorry. And again, this is from the Daily Fetched. Mainstream media outlets, including CNN and NBC News, began referring to Christians as Easter worshipers in a veiled attack on their most sacred day approached this weekend. The reference came in response to a tragic accident in South Africa where apparently 45 people on a bus plunged off a cliff and were killed. In the nation's Limpopo province on Thursday, the victims were heading to an Easter conference before the tragic accident occurred, and there was only one survivor. But the CNN headline read, quote, bus carrying Easter worshipers falls off cliff, killing 45 people in South Africa. So again, this is a veiled. This comes to no shock to anyone who has actually been watching the mainstream media and our government in the last 5 years, especially under Joe Biden. But there is absolutely no reason why they should be doing this. Red Eagle Politics on X said they're doing this again. We are not Christians, or we are Christians, not Easter worshipers. We don't worship Easter. We worship Christ. This is a direct attack, and this is another attack. Biden took the veil off, and the mainstream media, the lamestream media, the dumbasses who are the Democrat Party sycophantic, Kool-Aid drinking, mouth breathing scumbags jumped right on top of it. Said, we're going to do this, and we're going to take care of this whole thing. And it wasn't bad enough that the Biden administration tried to hide, because you recall, back in not so long ago, the Biden administration tried to hide going after people who were going to traditional Latin-based masses in terms of Catholics. That's exactly what they did. But here, let's take this even one step further. One step further, folks. This is a all-out attack on the believers of Jesus Christ. This is an all-out attack on it. Now, a year ago, there was a horrific school shooting in Tennessee. And it happened outside of Nashville. On the Covenant Christ Church, I believe, their school. And to celebrate this, somehow, don't ask me why, but somehow this event, and hat tip to the Daily Wire, for publicizing this, but somehow there was an event put together for Easter, okay, Sunday, tomorrow. It was put together for Easter, and it was called the Trans Day of Vengeance. Now, really? The Trans Day of Vengeance? So the group, I guess, is called Boro Frondo. And ironically, well, not ironically, but thankfully, the group has decided to cancel it. Thanks to the Daily Wire bringing it to everybody's attention. But here's what they put. This is what they put on their it's the festival group that put it together. They said on Instagram, event canceled due to misleading headlines from right-wing news sites. We have received many threats. We will be having a make-up show at a later date and a new venue. We decided the threat was too great, and we don't want to risk anyone's safety. Now, what kind of intelligence did you even think? Not only are you celebrating the fact that a literally mentally ill individual decided to take children's lives. Forget the fact that they were transgender. Just forget that fact. The fact of the matter is that it was a mentally ill person who decided to kill innocent people who had no way of defending themselves. And here we have the Trans Day of Vengeance. I mean, realistically, they could have named it the Trans Day of Remembrance. This literally is part of the reason why there is so much of a backlash in the first case. If you would have had any intelligence at all, look, you want to remember whatever? Okay, fine. They have like BLM remembrances and stuff like that. I mean, all the time. You want to do that? Okay, fine. But let's look at this from more of a socialistic aspect. You're not only planning it on a day of a holy day, but you're also planning it with the word vengeance in it. What the heck kind of a thought process did somebody have to go through? This is our day of vengeance. Vengeance. Vengeance of what? Vengeance of what? We don't even have the manifesto coming out. So there still is, officially, let me correctly say this. Officially, we don't have what is essentially a cause or a reason as to why this individual did what they did at the Covenant School. We can make assumptions, we can make guesses, but we don't have the official release of the manifesto yet, which would probably explain a lot. But here we have a Trans Day of Vengeance. Does that sound like a group of people in terms of this individual group, festival group, Boro Fondo? Does this sound like individuals that want to live in peace and harmony and just want to, throw off any kind of stereotypes and live in next to others and just be left alone? Does this sound like that? No. Phrasing and verbiology is important, people. It's important. This is crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Their intelligence level is just off the chart in terms of how lackluster they actually think about this stuff. This is crazy. Like I said, you want to live that way? That's entirely up to you. You don't have to believe the way I believe. You don't have to be, you don't have to follow what I say. That's part of the reason why America has been such a great country, is that different people have at least come down to the point where, look, violence and attacking people and, persecuting them and so on and so forth, all of that is generally wrong. It's called law and order. It's understanding a basic form of morals, values, reasons, understanding that law and order together is what makes our country what it is. But when you start throwing away those fundamental values and those foundational values and start putting out crap like this, you've got a problem, people. You have a problem. This is absolutely, in my mind, it's absolutely disgusting, the choices that they decided to make here. But this is an all-out attack. People, part of the Bible does talk about the end of days and the coming of the end of days. And one of the things that is a sign for the coming of the end of days is that the mask comes off, that evil no longer hides. And when evil no longer hides, if I recall correctly, and again, I could be wrong because I'm not perfect, but if I recall correctly, the next thing that will happen will be the coming of the Antichrist. But there's several verses that talk about good will be evil and evil will be good. We're in that now, folks. For those of you that celebrate Easter for the religious holiday that it is, take an extra few minutes for sure to pray for this country, for the souls of everyone on this planet. Because I guarantee you, if this continues, we're not going to be here for very much longer. At least not in what I would expect what's going on. All right, let me take a second. I'm going to do a quick break here. And I am going to push my shop. Sorry, only because of the fact that, it's there. Hey, if you like the broadcast and want to display your fan favorite indication and, logo, head on over to store.americanperspective.online and get yourself a t-shirt, sweatshirt, hoodie, tank top, coffee cup, something like that. Okay. And show off the fact that you are a fan of the number one liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs right here with the American Perspective with Rick Thomas broadcast. Head on over to store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online. And I do appreciate you going and not only checking it out, but maybe if you pick something up, that would be fantastic. I do appreciate all of you for that. So head on over to store.americanperspective.online and pick something up for yourself or a friend today. All right. So enough about that. I don't know if anybody caught this, but, and I've said this before in the past, I've actually, talked a little bit about it. But these cases against Donald Trump, they are all starting to fall apart. But I saw this and I had to put it in the show because we haven't really talked about the Jack Smith cases yet. At least not in the mindset of, things going on, because let's face it, the one that's in Florida, which is probably the most dangerous case as far as culpability with Donald Trump that is going on right now, is the classified documents case, which, of course, as I pointed out before, Robert Hur coming out and with his document not charging Joe Biden kind of leans a little bit toward not charging Donald Trump for the same thing. And even Eileen Cannon sort of alluded to that in one of her conversations and decisions when it came to the Presidential Records Act. But this story came out in PJ Media, and I didn't even think about this, but there was a potential procedural error that could be here that could actually throw out the entire case. So here is the title through PJ Media for those on the audio side. Jack Smith's case against Trump appears to be falling apart. Now, here's essentially what happened. So Jack Smith originally brought the grand jury to get permission, because for those of you that don't seem to understand our legal system, the way that it works is in order to indict a person, you have to convene what is called a grand jury. Then the prosecution puts together and throws up the essentially all of the evidence that they have, and essentially asks the grand jury, which consists of 12 people who are sitting there, and basically asks them and says, hey, is there enough evidence here? Do you think it's possible that something could be going on and that we could go to trial for this? And essentially the 12 people in D.C. saw whatever evidence Jack Smith decided to say. Now, keep in mind, the defense doesn't have any way or any methodology or any time to actually dispute any of these. This is not really a trial. This is merely just, consider it sort of like a process check to see whether or not there is enough evidence to indicate that there is a possibility of problems and that we need a trial in order to further assure the public that either the crime had been committed or not been committed based on the available evidence that would be brought out. And so what Jack Smith did is he convened these grand juries. Well, then he decided to take the classified documents case and move it to Florida. Now, here's part of the problem. The information that he used in order to obtain the indictments in D.C. don't have to be included by Judge Eileen Cannon. One of them in particular had to deal with, and here's a former prosecutor that was talking to Newsweek, kind of talked about this. And here's what that former prosecutor said. I'm going to get to what I was thinking of in just a second, but here's the former prosecutor who suggested this. Says special counsel Jack Smith could be blocked from using evidence against Donald Trump contained in grand jury investigation files, which were transferred to the former president's Florida classified documents case this week. In 2023, a grand jury in Washington, D.C. heard evidence from the witnesses, including Trump's attorney, Evan Corcoran, while considering whether charges should be brought against the former president and others for hoarding classified documents. However, Trump and his co-accused were later indicted in Florida. Now, under federal rules, the grand jury files that were transferred on Monday to the Trump-appointed Judge Eileen Cannon's court, that gives Judge Cannon control over what evidence can be included, especially where there is testimony that may have violated attorney-client privilege. So because former Trump attorneys, Evan Cochran's. Now, here's the way that this attorney-client privilege stuff works. If you are a client of an attorney, you have what is known as attorney-client privilege, meaning you can tell that attorney, you could literally tell that attorney, yes, I killed X, whoever that was. I killed them. But that attorney, being the fact that, because of the fact that they are your attorney, they can't say that. They basically can't turn you in from an ethics perspective. If you have an attorney that does turn you in, then they come up on ethics charges and problems. Okay. So here's the thing is that attorney-client privilege stays even if the attorney is no longer that person's attorney. They have attorney-client privilege even if they get fired. You have the expectation of privacy between you and your attorney. It's no different than, ironically, in the confessional. When you're talking about a priest. Now, the difference between the priest and the attorney is the fact that the attorney actually has legal protections here, whereas the priest really doesn't. But the point is that if that testimony that Evan Cochran gave in D.C. violates attorney-client privilege, and that information is now part of Judge Eileen Cannon's purview, she could decide to throw it out. And that could cause the case that Jack Smith is trying to make in Florida about the classified documents, because keep in mind, Evan or Mr. Cochran went through and told the Department of Justice, yes, we found these classified files. Here's some of this during the search and everything of Mar-a-Lago prior to the FBI showing up. So here's part of it from Newsweek. On March 24th, 2023, Cochran was forced to testify before the classified documents grand jury in Washington, D.C. It was his second time giving evidence. Cochran was called to give evidence because he wrote a letter that was sent to the Department of Justice in 2022, June of 2022, that stated that there had been a diligent search for classified documents. Along with the letter, he sent the department more than 30 documents with classified markings that were found on Trump property. Department of Justice Special Counsel Jack Smith announced on Monday that the Washington, D.C. court had transferred the grand jury files to Cannon. So again, Cannon now has the opportunity where she could conceivably say, well, guess what? That testimony showing that he and that letter was privileged information, and therefore privileged information is gone. And we kick it out. So this is another possibility of something that could come up in the idea of the federal court. Speaking of some further pieces of Trump cases, and I know I'm kind of running out of time here, but speaking of some further pieces on cases here, Trump has now officially appealed the ruling that allowed Fani Willis to stay on the Georgia case. And the case, for those of you that understand, understandably, here's what the defense is saying by putting this in. They are essentially saying that because Judge McAfee dismissed Wade, there is nothing in the Georgia law that states that you have the capability to dismiss one lawyer but not the other. It's essentially the way the law is written is if it's found to be a conflict of interest, even the mere appearance of a conflict of interest, then both attorneys need to get thrown out or need to get disqualified. McAfee tried to avoid that. And so now, because McAfee allowed the appeal, and again, it's not just Trump. There's, several other folks that are in on this, that have joined in on this. this is basically where, Fannie Willis, she stepped in it. McAfee stepped in it too. And, so here we go. I honestly think that by the way, the Georgia Court of Appeals, where is it? Down here at the bottom. The Georgia Court of Appeals has 45 days to decide whether or not it will review the decision. Now, it's not expected to impact or delay any of the current case proceedings in court, but, you also have the accusations of false testimony. So the whole idea that Willis and Wade testified that their personal relationship didn't begin until 2022, except there's evidence now that is likely to be presented that it was going on prior to that date. Yeah, Fannie Willis stepped in it, and they have potentially found a way around it. So we'll just have to see, but it's not starting to look good for Fannie Willis in this whole Georgia case. So this is another one of those cases where Dawn is potentially going to win, or at least has an opportunity. And this doesn't bode well when you start adding things like what I talked about earlier on in the program, the2 of, Joe Biden having a $25 million fundraising dinner with 2 old has-beens, or 2 young has-beens, because next to him they're young, and Donald Trump going off and visiting the wake after being invited, by the way, visiting the wake of the fallen officer. Those optics don't look all that great. And that is being reflected in the polls. Now, not that I really am a poll watcher. I don't necessarily, poll watch. Oh, I'm supposed to say it right. Fawny. Yeah, right. Fawny. Nah, it's Fanny. She got her fanny in a sling. Whatever. Anyway, if she wanted a W in there, she should have spelled it that way. Fawni. Then it would make a lot more phonetic sense. But anyway. All right. So now we've got some more polls, and all of these things that are going on in terms of the polling and everything. Keep in mind, this is not because Donald Trump is doing anything spectacular with this. Okay. This is not because Donald Trump is just that spectacular of a campaigner. Donald Trump honestly has had his mind wrapped around the lawsuits and everything a lot more than what he has been able to pay attention to with the campaign. So a lot of what's going on here is Joe Biden is essentially falling down the freaking stairs of his campaign, or falling up. I don't know, whichever way. But Donald Trump, I'm telling you, needs to just, when you have your enemy making a mistake, you just should let them continue. And so Donald Trump, realistically, he needs to just stay out of their way. Let him freaking crash. Give him the most rope that he possibly can and let them hang themselves. So here's a look at some of the swing states that just came out. Assuming that if this is a Fox News poll, apparently. And let me see here. So here, if you look, if you can see it on the screen, I'll tell you about it in terms of the audio portion of the program. Those folks over on iHeart, let me tell you, my audio side has just been going bonkers this last week. It is just fantastic. I do appreciate all of that. All of the folks who are listening to the audio portion of the podcast, but you should also head on over to Rumble and take a look at some of these fantastic graphics that I grab and snag and try to put in and explain for you and everything else. You should go head on over to Rumble and check that out. But anyway, so this is what they did is they kind of averaged the polls. And the reason being is because any individual poll could be an outlier, which is what a lot of accounts on X, like quote unquote Biden's wins, keeps throwing out there, oh yeah, Biden +4 in some swing state. Of course, they never, that account never bothers to like point out which poll they're talking about, but it's all wishful thinking. I'm just telling you right now. But when you average them all together, you get a pretty decent picture as to what's going on. So for an example, here in Arizona, Trump at 48, Biden at 43, Georgia, Trump 49, Biden 42, Michigan, Trump 45, Biden 45. So they're actually even there. Nevada, Trump 46, Biden 44, North Carolina, Trump 49, Biden 43. Pennsylvania, Trump 45, Biden 45. They're even there. And Wisconsin, Trump is actually behind Biden by 1 point, 45 to 46. Now, the website 270 to Win is kind of fun. And it basically gives you an opportunity to go onto the map and start playing around with some of the states and their categorizations and things like that. You have, blue state, heavily blue states, lightly blue states. You have toss-ups, you have heavily or lightly red state, and then heavily red stated. And then, of course, they also account for kind of crazy ones like Nebraska and Maine, who can split their electoral votes. They let you all play around with all of that. Well, apparently the article writer, let me go get him here, Ward Clark, went through and put together, based on the polls right now, and some of the polling in the states on 270 to Win, and he came up with the fact that Donald Trump will pull in. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't take into account the whole RFK factor, okay? Which RFK, honestly, is going to be pulling more from Biden than he is from Trump. So this potentially could be even worse overall. But the thing about it is that according to the author of the piece, they came up with 268 for Republicans and 236 for Democrats, with just a couple of states, Michigan and Pennsylvania, being part of the toss-up based on the polls that I threw out there for you. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we are still a long way away. We're talking about just getting into April here next week, and we go all the way to November, but the door is closing fast. And if Biden keeps screwing up like he is, thank God, if he keeps screwing up like he is, he's not going to win re-election. Even if they want to trot out the old thoroughbreds of Obama and freaking Clinton, which honestly, they're not thoroughbreds. But here, the latest Fox poll shows up, and in the latest Fox poll, President Trump has now pushed out to his largest general election lead in the history of the polling series. This is out of Town Hall. This article's out of Town Hall. Basically, they compared any one of the three cycles that Trump has won, and they essentially are showing that in a head-to-head matchup, Trump hits 50% on it. So here's the top line outcomes really quick. Trump 50%, Biden 45% nationally. Trump 43%, Biden 38%, RFK Jr. at 12%, West at 2%, and Stein at 2%, if you start adding all of them in. And versus the last time the poll was taken in February, Trump has actually gained 6 points and is now sitting at 51% against Harris at 45%. So polls, optics, all of that crap is starting to show up for Donald Trump. Now, I don't want anyone to sit here and think it's in the bag. It's not even close to being in the bag, okay? It's not anywhere close to being in the bag. We need to make sure, because again, based off of what I told you about Joe Biden and the evil that is sitting in the Oval Office right now off this guy, we need to get rid of not only him, but his entire administration. And we also need to get rid of even more Democrats, because you need to vote. You need to vote out these people. You need to vote out these people, because they are looking to destroy the great place that America actually is right here, right now. All right, before I go, and yes, Buddy asked, I bet nobody sent in a question again. No, I don't have a question. And if I did, I'm sorry, I don't have it prepared. So we're just going to skip it tonight. But you can get your question in just really quick. You can get your question in by sending it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. You can send in a question of the week. You can also send in a pet of the week for Wednesday's show. But before I let you guys go and, of course, head out and check out on my horse again, to make sure that he's still doing well, I saw this, and this right here, this one singular thing should not only scare the crap out of you, but should also highlight the danger that Joe Biden has done by opening up the freaking borders and just allowing these people to stay in our country. According to the Border Patrol over on X, and I put the link in the description, this was United States Border Patrol Chief, Border Patrol Agent Gregory Bovino's account. Border Patrol agents responded to a call from the Marine Corps base about a Chinese national who entered the base without authorization, ignoring orders to leave. Subject was confirmed to be in the country illegally. The purpose and intent behind his actions are still being investigated. I'm actually going to tell you what his intent probably was. It was to evaluate our security at that Marine base. It was to evaluate what we would do should someone do something like this. They tried to block this guy's eyes out. Just, I guess that's kind of like protecting his identity. But anyway, this, honestly, I would not be surprised to see this kind of thing coming up more and more often as we sit here. And these are, again, the people that are crossing the border right now are not families. They are fighting aged males from all around the world, especially from places like China. And knowing what I told you last week about China upping the ante around Taiwan, you could be looking at some serious problems here. But this should scare the living daylights out of anybody. And it should be making people call for Joe Biden to do his constitutionally mandated job and protect the United States of America. All right, folks. That is all the time that I have. I actually went over a little bit. Do me a favor, if you enjoy the program. Again, I apologize for the tardiness tonight. Like I said, it was a bit of an emergency. Kind of had to handle it right then and there. But if you like the program and like what I do, just remember I broadcast live Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And you can always catch me on Rumble. So head on over to Rumble, get you an account over there. It's free. And once you're there, sign up for the American Perspective with Rick Thomas channel and follow that channel, and you'll be notified when I go live, whether it's late or not. But anyway, Yeah, do me a favor, head on over to Rumble, sign up for an account, it's free, and you can even download the Rumble app on your phone, so you won't miss an episode. You can listen live for that. And we will see you on Wednesday. Happy Easter, everybody. Praise God that Jesus has risen from the dead, absolved us of all of our sins. And let's add an extra prayer for this great country that we call home, please. We are in the fight versus evil right now. I do believe it. So hopefully you will have a fantastic Easter tomorrow with family and friends. We will see you all on Wednesday. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.